watching Channel Africa Conversations.
They exploit the oil in Limbe in Ambazonia, but the taxes are paid in the neighboring French Cameroon town in Douala. So sometimes people say we are fighting because of marginalization. It's not about marginalization. It's about our identity.
Hello and welcome to Channel Africa Conversations. I'm your host, Peter Ndoro. And on today's episode, well, we focus on the Federal Republic of Ambazonia. And this is the Anglophone regions of Cameroon that declared independence from Cameroon in 2017. And sadly, it's been for a long time a region that's been embroiled in a conflict that's led to significant loss of life and displacement. Our guest today is somebody who's been pivotal in terms of advocating for the rights and the recognition of English-speaking population amidst this turmoil that's been playing out. Well, in this episode, we're going to try and shed some light on the historical context of the Anglophone-Francophone divide, the current state of what was known as Southern Cameroons, and explore the potential pathways to peace and resolution for Ambazonia. And to help us unpack this relatively little-known story of Ambazonia is the Federal Republic's Vice President, Mr. Dabney Yerima. Thanks very much indeed for joining us, and welcome to Channel Africa Conversations.
Thank you, Peter, for having me.
Well, let's start with the historical divide, because it starts in 1961, this story. Even though you declared independence 2017, it does go back decades. And we see it as a Francophone, Anglophone divide, but it's a little bit more complex than that, I believe.
That is correct, Peter. And I believe when I had the opportunity to travel abroad, you know, I could deduce from people who knew about Cameroon as a French country. But how did that all happen? You know, French Cameroon had her independence on the 1st of January 1960. And they were the Republic of Cameroon. So when the former British Trust Territory of Southern Cameroons, which is now Ambazonia, or some people call it Southern Cameroons, you know, they got their independence on the 21st of April, 1961. But by a fake plebiscite by the UN, Britain, and France, they decided that we'll get independence by joining Nigeria or French Cameroon, or the Republic of Cameroon. Let me use that so that your audience can understand. And so that plebiscite held, the fake plebiscite, and the results was that we're going to form a federation with with the Republic of Cameroon as two states of equal status. So, the federal constitution, there's a clause in the federal constitution which state that nobody in any way should ever change the status of the country. That is a federal country. Then 11 years after that, in 1972, the then president, Amadou Ahidjo, you know, abandoned the federation and through a presidential decree changed the name of the country to the United Republic of Cameroon. So he didn't, you know, seek the concerns of our leaders. He used his big pen to do that. So our people petitioned, but to no avail because he had the military on his side. They had unpacked the Southern Cameroon's police and everything in our capital in Buea to Yaoundé. So they could do nothing. So that was when they started their assimilation and annexation policy. So the whole deal behind the federation was to annex and assimilate Ambazonia. So in 1992, when Paul Biya took over from him, Paul Biya now changed the name to the original name of the Republic of Cameroon, which today we know is the Republic of Cameroon. So he came now to complete the assimilation process, the annexation process, which was their plan. So he changed it to the Republic of Cameroon. And since then, you know, he's been ruling with a heavy hand. So if you go back to our history, you'll see that our people have been fighting for the reinstatement of our independence. They've made many trips, like our leaders, like Foncha before their death and Muna. They've made many trips to the UN to ask that they correct the wrongs of that plebiscite. But it has always fallen on deaf ears. And today, we find ourselves in a genocidal war going on because when all of these things were evolving, our people sat at one time in what is called the All Anglophones Conference 1. That took place on the 3rd and 4th of April, 1993 at Mount Mary in Boya. So, the resolution of that All Anglophone Conference was that Paul Biya should return the country to the federal state that was agreed, you know, with that gentleman, I want to put that clause, gentleman agreement during the time of the fake plebiscite. So Paul Biya did not listen to their quest. So the following year, there was AAC2, the All Anglophone Conference 2. This time it was in Bamenda, in Tamalung. So that is when our leaders at the time decided and said, we are going to form the Southern Cameroon's National Council, which I'm a member. And that Southern Cameroon's National Council will become the governing body of the Southern Cameroon's people. So before then, you had leaders like late Abel Mukong, who fought. He spent almost all his life, you know, between the 60s to the time of AAC2. He spent almost all his life in jail because he was fighting for the quest of reinstating the independence of Southern Cameroon. May his soul rest in peace. So SCNC had been like the leading organization. We had other organizations like the Southern Cameroon's People's Conference. We had the Cameroon Anglophone movement that were fighting along SCNC to reinstate the independence of Southern Cameroons. And they collaborated and at one time took our case to the African Court in the Gambias. And the ruling was on our favor. But the Republic of Cameroon has never respected that ruling.
So why has Yaoundé wanted to hold on to Southern Cameroons? What is there that they couldn't let go of?
I believe one thing about our people is our people are very hardworking. They're very productive. And moreover, when they discovered that we were very rich in natural resources, I think that is what has held them to stay. Like presently, Southern Cameroons provide about 60% of the GDP of the country. So how will you let them go? And they exploit the oil in Limbe, in Ambazonia, but the taxes are paid in the neighboring French Cameroon town in Douala. So sometimes people say we are fighting because of marginalization. It's not about marginalization. It's about our identity. You know, it's about our identity. We are a people. And moreover, we are two different peoples with defined international boundaries.
So again, often it's reduced to Francophone, Anglophone. But what I've experienced across the continent is that those borders were fictitious, drawn on lines of longitude and latitude, and often not a reflection of the dynamics on the ground. Culturally, if we take English and French aside, Southern Cameroons and Cameroon, where they start to merge and come together, is there a similarity of the people on the ground, or is that a natural division that can say, yes, this makes sense to have Ambazonia here and Cameroon there?
To the best of my knowledge, I believe culturally we are different because it is the impact of what? Colonization. If we want to look at maybe certain traditional similarities, you could find some identities with cultures in French Cameroon that are closer to Ambazonia. But the whole issue is the impact of colonization that has changed us. For instance, we practice common law. They practice civil law. So those are two things that you cannot mix together. So these are the differences that it just makes us totally different. And those are some of the things that they were trying to impose on us. Imposing civil law, in our courts, judging our people with civil law, and then our lawyers have been trained with through common law, and then a judge will be judging through civil law. No, it doesn't work that way. And then they will send French teachers, people who don't understand English, to teach our children. It doesn't work that way because they have grown up in this kind of Anglo-Saxon tradition or way of life, I should say. So you cannot mix the two. It cannot work.
Yeah, we've seen in some countries where the governing party, the ruling people, will start to impose their culture and their ways on the minorities. Is that something that you've experienced where the Francophone way, I'll just use that inverted commas, has Yaoundé tried to impose that in the southern Cameroon?
Correct. That's what they've done. And that is why, you'll hear the president say, Cameroon is one and indivisible. Where did that happen? And he even sat in France, I think a couple of years back, and said, we try to assimilate them. But it's difficult because we are two different peoples of two different cultures. So that is the difficulty that they have. And they've tried to express that in our schools. They've tried to do that in our courts. It cannot work. And when our teachers and lawyers strike, it was just a public demonstration to say, no, this cannot happen. We cannot accept this. Judging our people with civil law, and then teaching our children, bringing teachers who are French-speaking to teach our children, is unacceptable. And what happened was, as usual, they sent their military to brutalize the teachers. And when the teachers were brutalized, lawyers also brutalized, some wounded. That is when it dawned on our people the fight that the SCNC, SCAPO, SCAM, SYL has been fighting for the liberation of Ambazonia. And then it made our people now to say, okay, now let's come together and look into this critically. And our people decided to organize conclaves in Nigeria, where the Southern Cameroon's Ambazonian Consortium United Front was formed, that's CACUF, and later grew to the interim government. And if you will recall, I think you've seen some of those images online. When our president made the speech, President Seko, who is serving a life sentence with his cabinet now in dungeons of French Cameroon, when he made his speech and called on our people to reinstate the independence of Southern Cameroons, our people came out with peace plans from all the corners of Ambazonia. And it took Yaoundé by shock. So something was cooking. But that is the work that SCNC and all these other movements have been working on the ground. And then our people realized that it's time. It's time to stand up. And they said, enough is enough. They stood up, and when they stood up, what happened? Paul Biya declared war on us. And we have this genocidal war that is going on. Today we are counting about 50,000 of our people who have been killed. They are about 1 million internally displaced, persons. Some of them are in French Cameroon, and some maybe they've left where there's serious fighting, and they're in the cities in our area. And then we have also about 1 million refugees around the world, mostly in Nigeria, Ghana, and there are just a lot of them here in South Africa. I've been able to meet a lot of them here in South Africa. And in that process, they also destroyed about 600 of our villages. There were lots of human rights abuses by the invading military, like rapes, and all of that happening in our territory.
So these attacks is one thing. What about day to day? Are you finding that Anglophones are at the bottom of the pecking order when it comes to civil jobs, civil service jobs? Describe the ways of the difficulty in living as an Anglophone in Cameroon.
Speaking English is a crime. That is the first thing I'll say. Because if you go to most of the French-speaking provinces, or even sometimes even in our own provinces, as they call them, and you're going to do an official document, and you meet a civil servant who is a francophone, and you say, "Good morning, I'm here to do this document." The answer you get is, "Est-ce que c'est l'anglais que je mange?"
Wow.
That, do I eat English? Or do I live
Wow.
with English? So then you will have to now try to speak French. Because, you know, when we were in secondary school, French, English, and maths was compulsory. There were subjects which were compulsory. But in their area, no. That is why you see they cannot even speak English. But you find a lot of Ambazonians speaking English. Now, let's go to the government, the cabinet of the Republic of Cameroon. An Ambazonian has never been the Minister of Defense, Finance. It's just recently that they got this puppet, Atanganji, and made him the Minister of Territorial Administration, which you can say it's, I think, Internal Affairs here. Let's talk about the Vice Chancellors in the universities. Ambazonia doesn't make up to 0.5%.
Wow.
Let's talk about the ambassadors around the world. Ambazonia doesn't make up to 0.5%. Let's talk about the civil administrators, like the governors. Ambazonia doesn't make 1% of them. Talk about the DOs. Ambazonia doesn't make even 0.5%. And then let's go to even concours, or maybe some of the state exams, into the School of Magistracy. Let's say, for instance, the entrance exam needs about 50 candidates. Yes, they will tell us, you know, you have to pay this much money. So they use it as a form to make money. For registration, our people will pay. So they need 50 people, but you have about maybe 50,000 people registering for that exam. But amongst themselves, who are leading the country, they have already distributed the number of candidates that they have. So a minister can just call the Minister of Higher Education, or sorry, the Minister of Justice, and say, you know, I have my son that I want to go to the School of Magistracy. And they just you know, enroll him. So you, if you don't have a godfather, or if one of them, you don't know one of them that you have to pay a lot of money to buy your way into, as an Ambazonian, then you cannot get in.
So 2017, things have escalated soon after your declaration of independence. How has that, what was the catalyst? Was it the declaration, or was there something else going on?
It began with the lawyers and teachers strike. But a lot of underground work had been done by the SCNC, because at that time there was a referendum going on that the SCNC wanted 1 million signatures of Southern Cameroonians saying we want to reinstate our independence, and they were to take it, you know, and to the UN, you know, and you know, kind of like do a petition to say our people want their independence, they want their reinstatement, they want you to correct the wrongs of the fake plebiscite. So that happened in that same time. So while SCNC was doing that, that happened. The teachers and lawyers strike, like I explained before, happened, and it resulted now to what we are seeing today. You know, a war of genocide that is ongoing, and you know, French Cameroon thought that within 3 weeks they were going to, just eradicate the whole of, Ambazonia. And some of them sat in their parliament, some of the ministers, they said, we'll just deal with those dogs, those rats. And they even called us 2 cubes of sugar that will just dissolve them so easily.
Wow.
So they thought they were going to use 3 months to do that. But today we are in 8 years and counting, resisting them.
Is this the general feeling of all Francophonies, or is this the politicians just acting as if they're acting on behalf of the general population?
Some of the Francophones, if you could watch some of their TV outlets, they have some of these debates about it. Some of them have really come out to speak to their people, to tell them, you cannot defeat Ambazonia in the battlefield. And they even educate them on the historical context to make them understand that there are no legal documents binding these 2 peoples together. So it's either the government can climb down their high horse, negotiate and dialogue with us, or this thing will continue will keep continuing. And as it continues, that is how our boys on the ground are getting more sophisticated. So some of them have been able to educate the people. But on the part of the government, about this issue of war economy, a lot of them are benefiting from it. So they are making a lot of money out of the war, and they don't want it to stop. So it is a very complex situation, because the world always says, we want to organize dialogue between Ambazonia and the Republic of Cameroon, but we don't know who to talk to. But the Republic of Cameroon got Siseko. Why? And his cabinet. Why can't you not start there? So what I'm explaining here is that they are more even divided than us. Because when you put us in one room, our main objective is the same. Maybe our way of getting towards that objective is different. But we are open to sit as stakeholders within our revolution, when it comes to very important issues like that, like negotiations, to sit down and agree that our experts, should negotiate for all Ambazonians. And that is why we are always prepared at any time, when La République has the goodwill for any negotiations, for us to go to that table with our experts and negotiate on behalf of Ambazonia.
Why hasn't the African Union and other international bodies, even the UN itself, been willing to listen and perhaps act on behalf of the people of Ambazonia?
There's a policy in the UN, which I may not quote who told me. I think it's a leader of a government. It's like, crash my back, scratch my back, I scratch your back. So it's a gentleman's club, and they are there to cover one another. So that is why no action can come out of out of the African Union, because we have sent petitions there, we've talked to diplomats there, we've talked to even presidents, head of states, and they always tell you, we have a diplomatic. The thing is, we have a diplomatic relationship with French Cameroon. We cannot, get into their internal issues. We say, no, it's not the internal issues. You need to understand the root causes of the issue before you can make that statement. And some of them have really shown their unwillingness to do anything. But then it gives us the courage to say, if we could resist them for 8 years, why not keep going on? And that is what we're doing. For the international community like the UN, I believe that most of the players who have shown some concern sometimes, for instance, the UN, I think they were just using it to like an opportunity to get their trophies from Paul Biya. when the UN Secretary General went to Yaoundé, Paul Biya gave him a gold status. And at that time, we were talking with his office, and they were talking more about reconstruction when a war is seriously going on. People are being killed on the ground. What do you want to reconstruct? That's what he was interested about. So we told them straight up that what we need is a fact-finding mission on the ground. Gather the facts, organize genuine dialogue between French Cameroon and Ambazonia with a third party present. Some, maybe a third party with muzzle that can implement the resolutions of the dialogue. That is what we told them. And because he got his trophy, I believe now for the past how many years, we've not heard from his office.
Is there a middle ground for both of you? Is there, if Ambazonia doesn't get its recognition as an independent territory, is that the red line for you, that that's the starting point to negotiation? Or is there a way that you can be given some autonomy maybe and stay within the environs of Cameroon?
I mean, our position is non-negotiable. After 2 surveys by the late Cardinal Toomey and the Coalition for Dialogue and Negotiations, I mean, our people spoke loudly that they want their independence. So there's no turning back. There's no middle ground about this. So our position is that we want, the international community to organize a negotiation, send fact-finding missions, organize fact-finding missions to our territory, gather the facts, organize this negotiation in a neutral country. They're able to also get third-party observers to be there, and let's talk. Let's go into the root causes. I will not decide for our people, or our team will not decide for our people, but we've made our position very clear. And I believe that in course of the process of negotiation, maybe positions may change. But as for now, our position stands. It's independence or resistance forever.
The average population of the African is 19. Are the young people in southern Cameroon's Ambazonia, do they have their hearts set on independence? And the 19-year-olds in Francophone Cameroon, are they resisting in the same way as their previous generation?
I would say the 19 years old in French Cameroon are resisting because, one, they don't know anything about us. What they know is about them. But what they've been trying to do is to make us know certain things about them. They are resisting the truths. They don't want to look into the root causes. What they have in their mind, as they've been brainwashed by their leaders is Ambazonia, Cameroon is one and indivisible. But a 19-year-old is now, is aware, an Ambazonian, is aware that I have an identity. I can proudly call myself an Ambazonian, an Amazonian. I can sing our national anthem. They are aware that the plebiscite since 1960, we've been suffering in the hands of this of French Cameroon. It was false. It was fake. So that is the difference. And I believe that even an unborn Ambazonian now knows that he or she is an Ambazonian. And that is one of the things that we've successfully done to our people, to make them be aware of who they are, accept their identity as a people. And that is what it is. You cannot change that.
The name Ambazonia, how did that come about?
From Ambas Bay. And Chief Godin Dinka, at the time, he was a powerful lawyer, Ambazonian lawyer. He's one of our leaders. He's old now. He's in the UK. But he's handed the baton to his children. He looked into the root causes of our problem and he sued French Cameroon. And I think that was in the high courts in Bamenda. And he won.
Wow.
The judge in his favor, because he brought in this identity issue. And that is how he coined that name, Ambazonia. And every Ambazonian now is proud of that name. But yes, most of the times we use Southern Cameroons because we are a former British Trust Territory of Southern Cameroons. So that we also have to remind the UN about where we are coming from, because some of them will say we don't know Ambazonia. So we have to always remind them to understand that we are that people. That was a state of its own with international boundaries. We had 4 prime ministers within 11 years in the in that federation with French Cameroon. But since then, La République has had what? 2 presidents.
Wow.
Since the 60s. But we, one thing I have to really say here is we were the first democracy in Africa. And we proved that because you go back to our history, you will see that Dr. Emel Ndele was a prime minister. Dr. Jongu Foncha was prime minister 2 times. Ngomjwa was prime minister 1 time. And you had Estimona, who was also prime minister. So that is how democratic we were.
Do you think you will see a day where the Ambazonian flag will be raised and you will be an independent state?
I see that every day. I see a free Ambazonia where our children are able to dream dreams and work hard and they achieve them. I see a free Ambazonia where there are infrastructures, health facilities for our people. I see a free Amazonia where no child will sleep in a day with hunger. And I see an Ambazonia going forward with leaders like those we see in Burkina Faso, like the late leader of Tanzania, what he did for the people of Tanzania, and what the new president of Botswana is doing for the Botswanan people, and what I've not followed President Kufuor of Ghana recently, but I believe I read his manifesto, what he plans to do for the people. I believe that is what I see for Ambazonia. An Ambazonia where the leaders work for the interest of the people and for the entire interest of Africa. I'm a Pan-Africanist. I believe in the dream of a free and a liberated Africa. An Africa where we have our own currency, an Africa where we have our free trade zone. I can be able to exchange like how our parents used to do, trade by barter. You know, what I'm good at, what I produce, I can easily bring it to South Africa, sell. And I believe if Africa can come to that consciousness, to know that they can be on their own and be able to do better than what the West can do. I can say this because I've lived in the West for a very long time. And I know the people who are putting the hard work to make the West be what they are. It's Africans, immigrants who are doing that. So if we can tap from that source of our own and trust them, because the problem about Africa is the issue of distrust, even amongst our people. Because now, for instance, I have a brother-in-law in Germany who is a medical doctor and a specialist, of course. And they brought this white lady and said, hey, this is the guy who's going to treat you. The white lady said, no, this one cannot treat me. And that is how we have been brainwashed to say the white man is better than us. They are not. We are more intelligent and better than they are. And if we can tap from our professionals abroad, I'm telling you, Peter, within 2 years, Africa will change.
Wow.
2 years. And that is what I see for Ambazonia. And that is what I am, sacrificing myself for a better tomorrow, for generations of Ambazonians to come, and also for Africans. That's why I'm here. I'm always here in South Africa. I'm not only here just to visit or enjoy this beautiful country. I'm here because we are coming up with projects that is going to change the lives of many South Africans. These are projects that we would have been doing in Ambazonia, but we believe that as Africans, wherever we have the opportunity, we must be able to empower Africans to be competitive with those who make us look inferior, you know, and say we can do this and do it better. And that is why there's one of those initiatives like J-Leaf Analytics here in Santon that is doing that. And I mean, those who are being trained there will have the same capabilities like those working for Deloitte. Those are the kind of revolutionary projects that we need for Africa. And those are things that we need to do for Africa, for our countries, to making sure that Africa grow. There are two things, finance and technology. That is what is moving the world now. And if Africa cannot invest in these two areas, they will continue to be called the dark continent. But I believe that we have taken action and we've started some initiatives here in Africa. It's an African initiative by Africans, and that is the way to go. And I'm using this opportunity to call on other Africans to say, let's embark on this kind of initiatives that doesn't only change our lives, but transform our continent entirely.
Mr. Vice President, I wish we could have talked for longer, so much to unpack, but thank you so much for your insights and giving us an understanding of the struggle for the people of Ambazonia. And let's hope that a resolution comes and that you get to enjoy your own identity in your own country. Thank you so much for joining us on Channel Africa Conversations.
Thank you, Peter, for having me. And I look forward to meeting with you again sometime.
And that's where we're going to end today's episode of Channel Africa Conversations. But before I go, don't forget, we'd love to hear from you. What kind of conversations do you want us to have? What do you think about the one that we've just had now? And who would you like to see in our studios and having conversations with? Our social media pages are on your screen now. And also you can comment right here on our YouTube channel. Until the next time, take care. Bye-bye.